Mom just said that the person that's setting it is who you're supposed to do it. That's probably somebody who's- And slipping it into his office on Monday. Okay, well, we'll hopefully see you a little bit. All right. Yes, uh-huh. Okay, it's just a little bit later. Okay, that is. Okay. He's gonna join from his, out in his truck,
Okay.
because he's concerned about coming over here all the time because there's a lot of people getting sick at home. And he says, I don't think it's a good idea for me to come in every day. I'm just concerned about it all.
Okay, so right now I don't hear nothing.
Well, nobody's talking, that's why.
So, mm,
Okay.
that's how we had it
Somebody else
before.
is joining.
No, that's James Fishback, the guy who's running this. Now I can do full screen,
Yeah, I know.
but why is this here? I want to get rid of that. Let me do full screen. That doesn't make sense.
Oh, James is not on video.
I know that. But how do I just make this the main thing? There's only 3 views.
Okay.
Speaker. That's
There you
the.
go. That's it.
Okay.
Okay, just stop, just leave it like that. Okay, put it on there.
Okay, nobody's got their picture on, so shut ours off.
Okay. Nobody can hear it.
No, it has nothing to do with that. It's the microphone. It's the speakers. So, I don't know what to do. I want to minimize this so I can see my apps below. Here, I don't know if I can do this. There's the sound. Nope. Damn it. Let me do this. Let me change the speakers.
Well, I just saying the system.
No.
It's just a little bit. Now you get nothing.
I want to get this down smaller. I can't. Maybe it's not on because he's not on.
He's got a microphone in front of him.
How come I can't minimize this damn thing?
It's up to you. Click on.
There we go. See, that's up all the way. That's up all the way coming out of here.
Okay.
Hmm?
I just wait.
Bar mitzvah. Well, it's not quite 9:30, but I'm in. What time is it?
It's about 23.
Yeah, I'm in. So I took myself, I don't want to be seen. So hopefully I did everything and I don't want to talk.
That's them talking. That's
I
somebody
understand.
else.
I'm trying to have you bring the speaker down a little bit.
But that's the speaker on here.
Okay, that's
See?
good.
That's coming from here.
Okay,
This is coming from the bar.
okay.
But what you were hearing is somebody else talking.
I know that.
But they shouldn't be talking because everybody's supposed to be on mute.
I understand that, but they're not, and neither are we. So they can hear you right now.
Hey guys, if you could hear me, I don't have sound coming from St. Thomas.
Michael, we can't hear you.
We don't have sound coming from St. Thomas. Can anybody else hear us? Testing 1, 2. Hmm? It's us.
I know that. Yeah. Michael, we can't hear you. We're in Maryland and we are not getting any sound from St. Thomas.
No, we didn't start. We got 2 minutes. There's no chat. Yeah, there is a chat. Okay.
Don't leave. It's open St. Thomas.
Does anybody have sound from St. Thomas? Does anybody have sound from St. Thomas? No.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, I have sound. Do you hear me?
I have sound too. I just don't think it started yet.
And
Oh.
Hi, everybody. I can hear you as well.
שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים. שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב. שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב. שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים. שבת אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים. שבת אחים גם יחד. We begin with the bar mitzvah call to responsibility, the prayer which is written on the inside of the handout, the bar mitzvah of Tyler Goldberg. Today we celebrate a special moment in the life of our community. We come here from different places, often from different backgrounds, yet we share a common goal: to witness and welcome this sacred rite of passage in the life of one of our young people. A bar mitzvah is the culmination of years of hope and months of preparation, yet it is a starting point as well. It is the beginning of mature commitment, the beginning of full Jewish responsibility, a hint of the taste of adulthood. As a community and as a congregation, Tyler, we acknowledge your accomplishment as we continue reading now together. We welcome you now, on the verge of adulthood, into the congregation of Israel. You are today teacher of Torah, leader of prayer. You hold within your hands the future of Jewish life. May the promise and potential we see in you come to fruition. May you continue to grow in knowledge of Torah and the life of the Jewish people with your ongoing study. May you have a special place in your heart for your community, for Jews and Jewish needs in our land and in every land. And may we work together towards our ultimate goal, to take our ancient teachings and make them part of our lives as we strive to make this world a better place. We look now to you. Take your place in our midst as we today begin the creation of tomorrow. May you go and grow from strength to strength, and may the Holy One of blessings send success and fulfillment in all your efforts. We give thanks to you, eternal our God, ruling Spirit of the universe, for giving us life, for sustaining us, and for enabling us to reach this day of joy. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, melech haolam, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. Amen. Forgot to open that earlier. Tyler, the talit that you receive now from the hands of your parents represents the Jewish tradition that comes to rest upon your shoulders on this occasion.
Tyler, although Grandma and I cannot be with you in person on this special day, please know that we are so proud of you, and we hope you feel the warmth of our love as you wrap yourself in the talit of your namesake, your great-grandfather, Max Goldberg. We hope for the beginning of a life filled with all the success you will ever hope for and so richly deserve. Congratulations on what you have achieved and becoming a man today. We love you so much. Mazel tov, with love and hugs, Grandpa Marvin and Grandma Joanne.
Now, he said the words, feel the warmth. You are wearing two talitot, so you are going to feel the warmth. Okay, the bracha, Baruch.
Olam asher kedeshanu b'mitzvotah v'tivanu lahit atech b'tzitzit.
Good morning and welcome to the weekday service of the Hebrew congregation of St. Thomas. Thank you all for being here. I promised in our rehearsal the other day that during the service itself I would give a bit of explanation. You are now in this special place, the oldest synagogue building in continuous use under the U.S. flag, and the second oldest such in the Western Hemisphere. But the real reason we get so many visitors, the real reason why perhaps you are attracted to being here, what makes this special, although not unique because we are one of 5 in the world, is the fact that we are one of 5 synagogues in the world with sand on the floor. After the hurricanes, I have added the word deliberately or intentionally to distinguish it from places that had sand on the floor, which was not wanted. But to tell the story of the sand, the most frequent question about our congregation, requires going into history. And here we turn to several hundred years ago and their reflections on several hundred years in their own past. In the 1790s, when these 5 congregations, 4 in the Caribbean and 1 in Europe, were founded, they remembered 300 years further into their own families' histories. And this is the story they told. Whether it happened exactly this way or not, we are not sure. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue and Spain kicked out the Jews. It was, by the way, the very same day that the Edict of Expulsion went into effect that Columbus sailed. That is probably not a coincidence. Some speculation about whether Columbus himself was a hidden Jew, I am not convinced, but for sure there were hidden Jews who sailed with him. We know that from historical records and evidence and documents. But whatever Columbus's story was, we know what happened. The Jews were given a choice. Leave penniless with everything, leave behind the homes that your families had been in some cases for well over 1,000 years, or convert to Catholicism and keep everything. Well, over the past 100 years, from the 1390s to 1492, this had happened a few times before and had been really temporary. So you can't necessarily blame them, but Monty Python was, as it turns out, correct. No one expects the Spanish Inquisition. They didn't really expect it to be enforced fully, but it was. It was made a capital crime to practice Judaism. And so, at least in the 1790s, the memory was that these Jews who were converted to Catholicism but were practicing Judaism in secret put sand on the floor of the places where they gathered together so it would muffle the sound of their footsteps. That's the real reason why there is sand on the floor. Whether it happened that way in the 1490s or not, we are not really sure. But that's the story that their families, their descendants, told. And so here we come to this sparkling gem of a community in the middle of this beautiful island in the middle of the Caribbean, with this linkage to our past and the sand representing not only a historical story, but a commitment to determination to remain Jewish. Welcome to all of you. Remember that a service is a service and not a performance. You're a congregation, you're not an audience. And so we ask that you join in together, even as Tyler leads. If you're a little bit soft. We should still be able to hear each other's voices. Please join together in most of the English, and please join in most of the, not his Torah portion or the part of the Torah I'm reading, but most of the service, and already you have heard that I am a rabbi, not a cantor. So please, please, if you know what I'm attempting to sing, join in and fact drown me out. We begin the weekday morning service with the singing of Ma Tovu on page 30. I'm Rabbi Michael Feshbach. Oliver is videotaping. I'm delighted to have James Anderson with us once again to stream. Susie Grabinick is here for tours, for tourists who may come in the middle, and just in general as a mitzvah on her part, a member of this community who's lived on island for many years, but also on the mainland for many years, so she should be able to understand like all of us. So welcome to Susie, and thank you for doing this here. Page 30. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Va'ani berov chastecha avo veitecha eshtachave el heichal kodshecha be'yiratecha. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael. Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, ohalecha Yaakov, mishkenotecha Yisrael.
We continue on page 33. My God, I thank you for my life, body, and soul. Help me realize I'm something new, someone who never existed before, someone original and unique in the world. For if there ever like me, there would have been no need for me to exist. Baruch atah Adonai Rofei Kol Basar U'Machli Asot.
The bottom of page 35.
My soul came to me pure, drawn from the reservoir of the holy. All the time that it remains within me, I'm thankful for its thirst for compassion and justice. Let my hands know the privilege of righteous deeds.
Baruch atah Adonai, asher biado nefesh kol chai, v'ruach kol basar ish. We chant the blessings on pages 36, 38, and 40 together. We open in the Hebrew, but we'll jump immediately after that in the middle to the English. This should be fairly easy to join in with. Please join me. And Tyler. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, who has given the mind the ability to distinguish day from night. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, who opens the eyes of the blind. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, who frees
the captive. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, who lifts up the fallen.
Baruch atah Adonai,
Eloheinu melech haolam, who stretches the earth over the waters. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, who strengthens our steps. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, who clothes the naked. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, who gives strength to the weary. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, who orders sleep from the eyes, slumber from the eyelids. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, who made me in the image of God. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, who makes me a Jew. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, who has made me a Jew. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, who girds Israel with strength. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, who crowns Israel with splendor.
The top of page 42.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvah v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, our living God, sovereign of the universe, whose commandments make us holy, and who command us to devote ourselves to the study of Torah.
Page 44, the obligations of daily living. These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of this world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study, morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among the people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all. We continue with Chetzi Kaddish, page 57. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah, v'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, bagala, bagala, uv'izman kariv, v'yimeru, Yehi shmei Rabbah mevorach, le'olam alol me'al maya, yitbarach, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitbar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shemei dekudesha, brichu, leila min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, damiran be'alma, ve'imeru, amen.
As we
Continue.
continue with Barhu, page 58, please rise. Barhu,
Baruch
et Adonai, Hamvorach,
Baruch Adonai Hamavorach Leolam Va'ed. The beginning of Yotzer Or on page 60.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, v'tzer uvoreh Hoshe, oseh shalom uvoreh et hakol.
And continuing on page 62. How deeply you have loved us, Adonai our God, gracing us with surpassing compassion, on account of our forebears whose trust led you to teach them the laws of life. Be gracious to us, teaching us as well. O merciful one, have mercy on us by making us able to understand and discern, to heed, learn, and teach, and lovingly to observe, perform, and fulfill all that is in your Torah. V'ha'erinenu b'toratecha, v'dabek libeinu b'mitzvotecha, v'yached levavenu le'ahava u'lira et shemecha, v'lo nevosh, v'lo nikalem, ולא ניכשל לעולם ועד, כי בשם קודשך הגדול והנורא בטחנו, נגילה ונשמחה, נגילה ונשמחה בישועתך, והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו קוממיות לארצנו. כי אל פועל ישועות אתה, ובנו בחרת וקרבתנו, לשמך הגדול סלע באמת, להודות לך ולייחדך באהבה. ברוך אתה אדוני הבוחר בעמו ישראל באהבה.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. Please be seated. Ve'avta et Adonai Elohecha, Behold levavcha uvho nefshecha, uvho deodecha. Vehayu hadvarim ha'ele, asher anohi mitzvahcha, hayom alevavecha, veshinantam lavanecha, vedibartam, beshivtecha, bevetecha, Uvlechtecha uderech, uvshovbecha ukumecha, upshartam leot oyadecha, vehayu letotafot beneinecha, uchtavtam omezuzot beitecha uvisharecha.
למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. One second. Let me check the page. Say page 7. One second. Okay, page 73. Right, announce the page.
Page 73. And what is my lifespan? I'm like a man gone out of Egypt. The Red Sea parts. I cross on dry land. 2 walls of water on my right and on my left. Pharaoh's army and his horsemen behind me. Before me, the desert, perhaps the promised land. To that is my lifespan.
Page 72 for Mi Chamocha. Mi Chamocha ba'elim Adonai, Mi Chamocha nehedar b'kodesh. Nora tehilot, O sefele, Nora tehilot, O sefele. Shira chadasha, shibchu geulim, לשמך על שפת הים, יחד כולם הודו והמליכו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך, לעולם ועד. צור ישראל, קומה בעזרת ישראל, ופתחנו מך, יהודה וישראל. Go Aleinu, Adonai Tzvaot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch Atah Adonai, Gaal Yisrael. I know that you are from the family from Washington Hebrew Congregation, so you are familiar with this prayer book. To your relatives who might not be, or to anyone who is following on Zoom who might be using a Kindle version of the prayer book, you may know or you may not that in this prayer book, in general, the prayers are on a 2-page spread. And the right-hand side, the even-numbered pages, on the top of the page is the Hebrew, and in this version with a transliteration next to it. And on the bottom is a reasonably faithful translation of the Hebrew into English. But on the other side, on the odd-numbered pages, is the Sitra Atra, the other side. These are prayers which are inspired by the theme of the original Hebrew. It is an alternative reading. It is sometimes a reinterpretation in its own way. We are going to continue with the Amidah. Now, this is the weekday Amidah. Most of you are probably more familiar with the Shabbat version of this. The opening is familiar. The introduction, which Tyler will lead. Avot ve'imahot, which he will lead. Gvurot, which I think he is leading. Kedusha, which I will announce on page 82, which I will lead. But then we come to the weekday section, the silent prayers, and you may follow either the tradition of the Hebrew or English on the even-numbered pages or the alternative selections on the odd-numbered pages. You may be seated when we reach those. You may continue to stand, but we will do the middle section of the Amidah in silence until we come to Oseh Shalom on page 100. For now, we rise, we face the ark, which is facing Red Hook, which is facing St. John, but ultimately is facing Jerusalem. We continue on page 74, beginning with the introduction.
Adonai, Sefatai Tiftach Ufi Yagi Tehilateha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu ve'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibur ve'Norah, El Elyon, Gomel Hasidim Tovim, Ve'konei Hako, Zoher Haste Avot V'Imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Lema Shemo Ve'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Mashiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah. Atagi bor leolam Adonai Mehayeh HaKol El HaRev Mashiach Mashiv HaRuach Amid HaGashem Mekekel Hayim Behesed Mehayeh HaKol Berachamim Rabim Somech Noflim Norech Olim Umatir Asurim Umehayeh Bavonato Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Ba'gevurot, Umido Melech, Melech Memit, Umechaye, Usmatz Mia Yeshua, Beneman Takol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mehayeh HaKol.
Page 82. נקדש את שמך בעולם, כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום, ככתוב על יד נביאך, וקרא זה אל זה ואמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, מלוך כל הארץ, כבודו לעומתם ברוך יאמרו ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור ימלוך אדוני לעולם Elohai Zion, Ledor Vador. Hallelujah. Ledor Vador Nagid Godlecha, Ulenetzach Netzachim Kiddushatcha Nakdish. Veshivcha Eloheinu mipinu lo yamush leolam va'ed. Baruch ata Adonai ha'el hakadosh. Standing or seated, the even-numbered pages or the odd-numbered pages, we continue in personal prayer through page 100. What's this?
This is the newer version.
Oh, okay. Put it here. I'm gonna leave this here. I don't usually make comments or teach during this part of the service, but you will notice on the odd-numbered pages, many of the selections come from something called Pirkei Avot, the ethics of the ancestors. I'm going to refer to that work in a few minutes when we participate in the passing of the Torah. The bottom of page 100. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru imru amen. Ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. We've reached the section of our service during which we will be taking the Sifrei Torah, the Torah scrolls from the Ark, and Tyler will be teaching us the meaning of this week's portion if he has the updated version of his speech, as well as participating in reading from the Torah itself. As we prepare for the Torah service, I will add a few moments about our Sifrei Torah, about our Torah scrolls. The one he will be carrying, I'm going to tell you that story in a moment. But the scroll from which we are reading is one of the two on the far left. The far left as you look at the ark. And those, as you may see, are made of silver and not of wood. They are very heavy. They are also very old. Both of those are from the 1600s. And both of those scrolls, along with our eternal light, our Ner Tamid, were saved from the fire that was in this on this spot in the previous version of this synagogue in 1831, and brought back into the building when the synagogue was dedicated in 1833, much as you see it now. There are times when the walls have looked different. We have, maybe you were here even in 2000 when this was renovated and restored and the white, bright plaster was put on instead of the bricks. But in general, the ark is from 1833, the Torah reading table from 1833, the podium from which we light candles is from 1833. The benches on which you are sitting are from 1833. The mats that you are sitting, those have been replaced. And the sand is replaced every few years. It is actually freshwater sand, not saltwater sand. But this building is much as it was and has been throughout that period of time. If you are interested in a little more of the history, but like novels, a historical novel, historical fiction, but the general outlines are largely true, about our community, our island, and the most famous family who were ever members of our congregation. The novel is called Marriage of Opposites by Alice Hoffman. It came out a few years ago. It is about the Pissarro family. Camille Pissarro, the founder of French Impressionism, born on St. Thomas, began painting on St. Thomas, left as a teenager, pretty much never looked back, but has in his paintings, in his images and his style began to develop here. In the book, you hear the story of that fire and of the men rushing in to save the Torah scrolls and the eternal light. That is the story of, by the way, the scroll from which we are reading from the 1600s has crystal clear handwriting. It's one of the clearest I can't believe it's from the 1600s. The handwriting is so good that is a kosher scroll. We are very fortunate to be able to step into something that is so old but is able to be used as well. It's not actually the oldest thing in the building. The oldest thing in the building is not even me. But if you look behind me, you can see the menorah behind me. It is a 7-branch menorah. We just finished Hanukkah a few weeks ago. That's not a Hanukkah menorah. But the 7-branch menorah is the oldest symbol of Judaism. And that as a gift to the congregation from the Paiwansky family, but we are told that it is from the year approximately 1100. Now, when I say that, people usually gasp. Our custodian, Michael, who you met earlier, has pulled me aside when I first moved here and said, yeah, it's old, but we don't have the receipt. Let's just say it's probably the oldest thing in the building. The 1100 claim, maybe. So we are blessed to be able to be in a place of such beauty and with so many stories everywhere you look. But the story of our people is found in the reading of Torah. And so we turn to page 104. We ask our ark door openers to come forward. We ask the one who is Jake, the one who is helping with the larger scroll, to come forward, and all those members of Tyler's immediate family who are participating in the passing of Torah from generation to generation. Page 104, please rise. Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, ki mitzion tetzei Torah. Grandparents over here. Udevar Adonai Mirushalayim. Grandparents over here. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Le'amo Yisrael B'kedushato. Tyler, the Torah which I hold in my arms is our lightest scroll, but it tells the heaviest tale. This Torah has a special story. At the beginning of World War II, when Hitler invaded Czechoslovakia, he gave orders to the generals to burn all the Jews and burn all the synagogues, but to save the silver and save the scrolls. The Nazis were, of course, very careful record keepers, so you can see a number inscribed in the scroll to this very day. They were going to, after they finished the war, after they killed all the Jews in the world, they were going to make a museum to the extinct race. Fortunately, they lost the war. And after the war, the Allies found this treasure trove of scrolls. And so they packed it up. They didn't know what to do with it. They sent it off to London. And there, the Westminster Synagogue formed the Westminster Synagogue Holocaust Memorial Scroll Trust. And hundreds of these scrolls have now been sent out on permanent loan to synagogues around the world. Here, my former congregation, Temple Shalom, I believe Washington Hebrew has one as well. If there were ever to be such a time as there would be a new Jewish community in Budin, Czechoslovakia, we would get, I don't know, what, a tweet these days? And it would say we would like our scroll back. And we laugh, but we say it has actually happened. In the last gathering, biennial gathering of the Reform Movement of Judaism, the biennial convention in December of 2019, do you remember conventions? Remember like what they were when a lot of people got together? Yeah, I sort of have a memory of those. Without a mask even. In December of 2019, with 5,000 maskless Reformed Jews, Aggie, who is off island now, Susie is helping substitute for her. Aggie Rampino and I were there when a Hillel from New Jersey, I believe, had brought its scroll to Chicago. It was decommissioned and prepared to be returned to a community in Czechoslovakia where there was a new Jewish community for the first time since World War II. So it could happen. For now, this is our precious legacy, our sacred trust. When you step on that sand, it represents the greatest moment of persecution in all of Sephardic Jewish history. Tyler, when you hold this in your arms, it may feel light, but it represents as well the greatest moment of persecution in all of Ashkenazi Jewish history. In fact, in all of Jewish history altogether. When you step on that sand and you hold this scroll, you are saying the people who tried to do this to us are no longer here. And the people who tried to do this to us outside of a few imitators and kooks in Charlottesville and other places are no longer here. But we are becoming a bar mitzvah, making a claim on the Jewish present and a promise for the Jewish future. This is the Torah. In the story our people tells 3,500 years ago, it entered our people's religious life and has remained the center of our spiritual consciousness ever since. In the metaphor of transmission, we read at the very beginning of Pirkei Avot, the ethics of the ancestors, Moses received the Torah at Sinai and passed it on to Joshua, and Joshua to the prophets, and the prophets to the men and women of the great assembly, and on down through all the generations of psalmists and sages and poets and philosophers who have taken its teaching and brought its message to their own time, until at last it come to those who become parents, who pass it on to their children, until at last it comes, carefully, to the arms of the present generation. Until at last it comes to Tyler's arms, and with Jake carrying the other Torah. As we face the ark for a moment, Gadlu l'Adonai iti, u'noroma ma shemo yachdav. Step back down and go. Carefully, don't trip. Go in a circle and come back. Lecha Adonai hagedula v'hagevura v'hatiferet v'hanetzach v'hahod ki chol v'shamayim uva'aretz ki chol v'shamayim uva'aretz lecha Adonai hamamlacha v'mitnaseh lechol rosh romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu Lahar kodsho romemu Adonai Eloheinu v'hishtachavu lahar kodsho ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. We have the mantle. Please be seated. Shkoach. Is this the right version? Yeah. Okay. Loud, clear, so we can hear you. So you did a lot of good work for this. Let's make sure we can hear you.
My Torah portion, Va'era, the second parsha of the book of Exodus, talks about Moses and Aaron standing up to Pharaoh and telling him.
This is the one part you can take your mask off for.
Okay. My Torah portion, Va'era, the second parsha of the book of Exodus, talks about Moses and Aaron standing up to Pharaoh and telling him to let the Israelites go. It talks about the first 7 plagues and how Pharaoh changes his mind and doesn't let them go. But today I decided to talk about Moses and why God chose him to lead the people of Egypt out of Egypt. Even though we don't have much knowledge of why God chose Moses to be the leader, we have a few guesses about why we think he was chosen. One reason is because of the things he did that show what kind of person he was and what type of leadership characteristics he had. These are two main characteristic traits that Moses has and are important for a good leader to have: believing in justice and humanity. We learn about these characteristics in last week's Torah portion, Shemot, but I wanted to talk about how we see those character traits even after Moses starts talking to Pharaoh, and how he was able to stand up to Pharaoh in this portion. For example, in the Torah portion of Shemot, Moses didn't like what the Egyptians were doing to the Israelites. He saw the injustice, and it bothered him so much that he killed an Egyptian who was beating a Jewish slave. This shows that Moses stood up to the people who were doing things he knew were wrong. Then Moses was upset at seeing one Jewish man who started a fight with another Jew. This shows that he can also know when someone is being the bully and figure out who is guilty and stand up to him. Finally, Moses ran away, and when he saw some women with their sheep at the well being bothered by men, he got them to leave so that the women could give water to their sheep. This shows another way that Moses stands up for the weaker people and against the bullies and injustice. In all of these cases, we see how much justice and doing the right thing means to Moses. I think that this is a very important characteristic for a leader to have. We also saw that Moses was humble when he kept arguing with God that he is not the right person to go and stand up to Pharaoh. He argued that 1, he isn't good enough; 2, that the people won't believe he spoke to God; 3, that he is bad at public speaking; 4, that he won't know how to answer questions the people will have; 5, and the people as well as Pharaoh won't believe him or take him seriously because he has a speech impediment. This all shows that he was humble. Another reason why I think he was chosen as a leader is because he grew up around Pharaoh, so he has seen more than other people about what has happened in Egypt, sort of like having close-up seats at a football game. Once he was chosen, he was told to tell the big mighty Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to let his people go. But that didn't work, so to show him that God was almighty and powerful, God started to bring the plagues to Egypt through Moses and Aaron. Moses believed in God, in what God could do, but he still argued with God about how the people of Israel and Pharaoh wouldn't believe him, so he shouldn't be the one to do this job. In this week's Torah portion in chapter 6, verse 12, part of the Aliyah I will read, Moses says again that he has trouble speaking, that he is a man of impeded speech. We see here that Moses is also just a regular guy, not perfect. He even had a physical disability, and he is not someone you would think God would choose as a leader of his people. I think that God chose him because he wasn't high and mighty. If the person God chose was so high and mighty, the person would already have everything and wouldn't be thankful. Moses just wanted things to be right. God knew that Moses and knew that Moses would do what God told him to do, and also because it would be the right thing to do. Many people in history today have the same qualities that Moses had. For example, Malala Yousafzai. She stood up for rights of girls and women, specifically for their right to an education. She was also even shot for her activism. Malala said, "I raise up my voice not so that I can shout, but so that those without a voice can be heard." This shows how her sense of justice is so strong, just like that of Moses. Other examples include Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King, among many others. Moses can inspire me to be both great and regular. He shows us that a regular person can do great things and become a great leader. As I think about being a bar mitzvah and an adult of the Jewish community, I hope that I will be able to be guided by a sense of justice like Moses and stand up for what is right. I'm so thankful that we can be here to celebrate my bar mitzvah and that all of you are able to be with me. I wish that Grandpa and Grandma could be with me, and I think about Grandma Robin and know that she would be so proud of me today. I want to thank a few people for helping me get to this day today. I want to thank my bar mitzvah tutor, Lisa, for coming over and helping me learn and practice my Hebrew, the prayers, and the Torah reading for the past 2 months. I also want to thank Jill Broder, who has been working with me on English writing and reading assignments at school. Without her, I would have had a hard time with all the reading passages I read today. Zach, you've been a role model for me. I looked up to you and wanted to do what you did at your bar mitzvah. I also want to thank you for persevering through my annoyingness. Finally, I want to thank my mom and my dad for helping me get to this day. Mom, I thank you for helping being positive. You always are positive around me, and that has helped me be able to keep going and not give up in this process of learning for my bar mitzvah. Dad, thank you for helping me stay on track frequently asking, "Have you done this?" and for always listening to me. Thank you all.
Yeshkoach, Tyler, on an outstanding Dvar Torah. You know, this was my bar mitzvah portion, Parshat Va'era, when I became a bar mitzvah years ago. And I actually still remember what the rabbi said to me on that occasion. No pressure on you to remember this forever, but I will say, when we were upstairs signing the certificate and you included amongst the commitments dedication to Tikkun Olam, making the world a better place, that came through clearly in your remarks. 2 things that Moses did, but you did them also. One, he stood up to an Israelite being beaten, and whether or not Moses knew it at the time, that was standing up and defending his own people. But then he did something different with the women at the well. He stood up and defended them. Now, okay, maybe he wanted water, right? And he didn't yet know that he was going to marry one of them. That came a little bit later. But that was standing up and defending other people. Those are 2 sides of the coin of social justice, of making the world a better place. And you did it yourself. Malala, standing up for the rights of girls, was standing up for herself. By the way, you know the story about Malala, right? She said in a nationally televised interview that when she was 17, that she dreamed, it didn't happen, but she dreamed she wanted to go to Stanford University. They said, "What's stopping you?" She said, I have to take the SATs. Look, frankly, I got to say, if you win the Nobel Peace Prize, you should get an exemption from the SATs, right? But Malala is standing up for other people. But you were standing up for her in your remarks. So you were standing up on behalf of women and then African Americans. And then this is to defend ourselves and stand up for others, anyone who needs it. Those are 2 sides of the coin of social justice, and you have touched on both. Yasher Koach. You can have a seat. Ya'amod la'aliyah rishonah. For the honor of the first aliyah, Richard Dreisen, Karen Dreisen, Jessica Selmer, and Michael Selmer, William Sachs, and Judy Sachs. Come on over here. Baruch Hu. Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai. Amen. Vayedaber Elohim el Moshe, vayomer elav ani Adonai. Ve'era el Avraham el Yitzchak ve'el Yaakov be'el Shaddai, ushmi Adonai lo nodati lahem. And God spoke to Moses and said to Moses, I am Adonai. I appeared to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob as God Almighty, but my name Adonai I did not reveal to them, which is, by the way, not true. So that makes this one of the most complicated verses in the entire Torah. V'gam hakimoti et briti itam latet lahem et eretz Canaan et eretz migurehem asher garu va. And also I established my covenant with them to give to them the land of Canaan, the land in which they had dwelled. V'gam ani shemati et na'akat b'nei Yisrael asher Mitzrayim ma'avidim otam ve'ezkur et briti. And also I have heard the outcry of the Israelites whom the Egyptians are enslaving. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam natan lanu Torah temet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Amen. If you guys go back down. Yamdu l'aliyah hasheni. For the honor of the second aliyah, Emily Goldberg, Jason Goldberg, and Zachary Goldberg. Yamod Reuven ben Yosef Esther lichvod haTorah. Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bakar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten ha'Torah.
Amen. Lachen emor livnei Yisrael ani Adonai v'hotzeti etchem mitachat sivlot Mitzrayim v'hitzalti etchem me'avodatam v'ga'alti etchem bizroa netuya u'vishvatim gedolim v'lekachti etchem li la'am v'ayiti lachem le'elohim v'yidatem ki ani Adonai Elohechem hamotzi etchem mitachat sivlot Mitzrayim והבאתי אתכם אל הארץ אשר נשאתי את ידי לתת אותה לאברהם ליצחק וליעקב ונתתי אותה לכם מורשה אני אדוני וידבר משה כן אל בני ישראל ולא שמעו אל משה מקוצר רוח ומעבודה קשה. ברוך
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher asher natan lanu Torah emet. V'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai, noten haTorah.
Amen. Give me- Put that over here. Put that, open it up to there. Ya'amod, 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 habachor habar mitzvah, Matan ben Yosef, Esther lichvod haTorah. For the honor of the third aliyah, the bar mitzvah, Tyler Max Goldberg.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach leolam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bahar banu mikol hamim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Okay, try to follow in here and there. Go. Do you need me to hold that for? Hang on, I'll do this. 1 second. Or do you prefer it on the other side? Do you want this or on the other side?
It's fine now.
Okay.
Where do I start?
Yeah.
Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor. Bo daber el paro melech Mitzrayim. Vayishla et bnei Israel me'arto. Vaydaber Moshe lifnei Adonai lemor. Han Yisrael Moshe mo Eli. Va'ech yishma'eni paro. Va'ani paro svatayim. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe ve'el Aharon ve'etzavem el bnei Israel ve'el paro melech Mitzrayim lehotzi et bnei Israel
Me'eretz Mitzrayim. Good. Oh, blessing after. Excellent. Whoops. Blessing after. Go there, but pull back. Good.
Baruch
Atah
atah
Adonai.
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam
Asher natan lanu.
Torah emet mehayei olam nata betohenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. We call forward at this time your parents, Tyler, for their words to you. As I have said to other people, their job is to be interesting. Your job is to look interested. You have to succeed whether they do or not. Come over here to let them speak into the microphone. So go closer to them.
Tyler, wow, we can't believe that this day has finally come. How are you 13 years old when we told you you were not allowed to turn 3? We have been planning this destination bar mitzvah for the last 2 years. After seeing Zachary's bar mitzvah, you came to us and said you wanted to have a small ceremony, and you said that you wanted to read from the Torah and surf the waves. Well, here we are in St. Thomas, and we have made your plan come alive.
Tyler, we have always known that you are a very special person, and you would touch so many lives. You are all heart. Ever since you were a little boy, you always wanted to include everyone, no matter their size, ability, or disability. You have a rare gift of recognizing people's needs and emotions. Over the years, as your parents, we have received many emails, text messages, handwritten notes, and even gift cards, thanking you for standing up for your friends and your family. And you're always do the right thing, Tyler.
We are so proud of the person that you are becoming, as you have always been so helpful and sweet to others. You have always thought of everyone around you, and you are selfless. You are someone that certainly does not want to disappoint. You are fearless and have such grace and courage the way you are on the football field or skiing down a mountain.
We have enjoyed watching you prepare for this special day, Tyler. You tackled your preparation for your bar mitzvah the same way you tackle life, with hard work, dedication, and determination. You started this bar mitzvah journey less than 5 months ago, and your eagerness and willingness to study without complaining has been simply amazing. As your parents, it's so important, Tyler, for you to continue to be real and true to yourself. We have instilled the solid foundation for what you need to be successful in life. If you continue your hard work, dedication, and determination in all areas of your life, you will never fail. You will always make us proud, and do not ever stop loving us the way you do. We are so lucky you're ours. We love you with all of our hearts, Mom and Dad. And we now present you Tyler, with this beautiful bar mitzvah certificate.
Seen that before? Face me. Stay up here. So, big sigh. It's almost over, right? No, trip question. Just beginning. Let me ask you a question. How long have there been Jews in the world? How long have there been Jews in the world?
I don't know. Like, a very long time.
That's what most people say. We're gonna actually, I don't know if you like Big Bang Theory, but we're gonna do the math. Right? Abraham lived, if Abraham ever existed, ask Rabbi Shankman that during, confirmation or something. If Abraham ever existed, it was around 1800 before the common era. We'll round that to 2000. It's around the year 2000 now. 2000 plus 2000 is? 2000 plus 2000 is? Thank God you can do math. 4,000 years there have been Jews in the world. So here's the question. What's going to happen to the Jewish people in the next 40 years?
We don't know.
Well, who's that depend on?
Us.
Who's us? Yes. That would be the point of today. Besides surfing the waves, besides other things, right? To keep coming, to keep caring, to keep alive the commitments that you make on this day. To remember the sand and the scroll and the commitment that means to carry on. This is a beautiful, beautiful talit and a beautiful connection with the past. This is past and future meeting right here. But that's 4,000 years on your shoulders, kid. No pressure. You've made us very proud today. Make us proud tomorrow as well. Place your hands on his head. As we look to your future, we invoke the most ancient words of blessing of our people's past. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless you and keep you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka. May God shine in you and through you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. And give you the most important gift, that of shalom, of peace in the world into which you step now as a Jewish adolescent. God help us. Of peace inside all of your relationships, and most importantly, of peace in your own heart. And let us say, Amen. I present to you the first of your gifts that you will receive. This is a mezuzah. A mezuzah, however, that is shaped like the entrance to this building that Susie is standing right in front of. It has the arch, it has the doors, that you may always, wherever you go, take this with you, take the memory of this place, this space, this sacred and special time with you. and the other is a certificate from the Reform movement. This is a Reform synagogue. You belong to a Reform synagogue. This is $250 towards the cost of a high school youth group age trip to Israel. Now, I know Birthright is 10 days and it's free, and I hope he goes on that. If it still exists then, who knows? But this is one of these 6-week trips. This is only a drop in the bucket, but the rabbi's discretionary fund, the federation, there are many people who will help make this. This is a beginning, but it can grow with other places, because people, once we are past COVID, people want you to get to Israel. One day in Israel is worth maybe a year and a half of religious school, in my opinion, in terms of how much you learn and how much you feel the story of our people on your body, as my tour guide would say. So this is for you as well as a remembrance of this, and also to help you on the next stages of your Jewish journey. We prepare to return the Sefer Torah to the Ark. As I recall, it's actually Tyler's parents here who are the holder and dresser. So we ask the next set of Ark door openers to go to the Ark at this time. But if you'll step back as I lift up the scroll, please rise. Don't open quite yet, in a minute though. V'zot haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei v'nei Yisrael al pi Adonai b'yad Moshe. Al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim, al shlosha devarim ha'olam omed. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilud chasadim. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilud chasadim. Al shlosha devarim, pardon my reach. Al shlosha devarim. There we go. Al shlosha devarim ha'olam omed. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilud chasadim. Al haTorah ve'al ha'avodah ve'al gemilud chasadim. Page 110. Yahalalu et Shem Adonai, ki niskav shemo levado, hodo al eretz v'shamayim, vayaren keren le'amo, tehila lecho chasidav, Livnei Yisrael am kerovo. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Skipping ahead to the bottom of page 586 for Aleinu. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula liotzer b'reshit, שלא עשנו כגומי הארצות, ולא שמענו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגור עלינו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומושב יקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובהי מרומים. הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפס זולתו, כך כתוב בתורתו. וידעת היום והשבות אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת. אין עוד, ונאמר, והיה אדוני Lemelech al kol haaretz, bayom hahu, Yihyeh Adonai echad, Ushemo, Ushemo, Ushemo echad. There are stars whose radiance is visible on this earth, though they have long since ceased to exist. There are people whose light and whose warmth continue to shine for us, though they are no longer among us. These stars which shine in the dark of the night, they light the way for humankind. We remember at this time this special family remembrance, Robin Dreisen Amernek. Is there anyone else here to say Kaddish for a loved one on this occasion? Is there anyone on Zoom who is here to say Kaddish for a loved one? The memories of all of our loved ones are with us. Our griefs and sympathies are mingled, and our hearts turn to so many other communities at this time of pandemic and plague of terrible loss. As we turn now to Kaddish Yatom, the Mourner's Kaddish, page 598. And as is the custom in most Reform synagogues, we rise as a congregation as a whole for Kaddish Yatom, for the Mourner's Kaddish, page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, B'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, B'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, Ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach leolam olmei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudashah b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata. Ta'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol Yoshvei Tevel v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn amongst us and all who are suffering the pain of loss everywhere. And together let us say, amen. We conclude with the singing of Eli, Eli on page 653. I think of that in some ways as an anthem for this congregation, even though it was written in Caesarea, far from here. But since it mentions in its aspiration, in its yearning, in its vision, it mentions Hachol v'hayam, the sand and the sea, I think of it as fitting for here. Please join me for this, and then, even though you are all in one pod, I am not in your pod, so instead of gathering closely and tightly together, the wine and juice is set out, the motzi is set out, but we will, whoever is supposed to lead the kiddush and motzi, we will do it from where we are standing now instead of congregating very closely together. Eli, Eli, page 63. Eli, Eli, shelo yigamer le'olam, hachol v'hayam, rish rush shel hamayim, berak hashamayim, tfilat ha'adam, hachol v'hayam, rish rush shel hamayim, berak hashamayim, tfilat ha'adam. Eli, Eli, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart, the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart. As we move from the service to the celebration, I want to take a moment once again to thank the Goldbergs, to all of your relatives, to Tyler, for, I know this is a special part of his wanting to surf the waves, but this has also been, with all the challenges of COVID, with all our nervousness spiking up again, with all of the bouncing back and forth about your planning, but also ours, it is very important to our island, to our community, to our congregation, to me, that you have chosen to do this here. May we remain in touch, and may we meet again in a safe way without masks here or there or somewhere else. And thank you all for being here. We turn to Kiddush. Who is leading Kiddush? It's just the short Bori Priagafen. So go ahead symbolically, and then you can drink in a second. Ba. Heinu, Melech. L'chaim. And Motzi? Hamotzi, Lechem. Amen. B'te'avon, which as you know translates into English as bon appetit. Thank you all, and perhaps I will see you Friday night at 6 o'clock. Mazel tov. Don't forget your things up here. James, let me know when we're off. Well, I have no idea who's doing the streaming this Friday. Thank you very much.
Masks in good use.
Thank you. I certainly will. I appreciate it very much.
Sure.
Because it would deteriorate the material underneath. Totally practical reasons.